We are very pleased as lab leaders, but also as Europass Cinemas, to welcome Françoise, Raynaud, and Jonathan Thornhill from Loci Anima. So I think it's the first time they are actually presenting their work for Europass Cinemas, but it certainly is not the first cinema they've been building that they will talk about, because they've been building a lot of cinemas since 2015. But Loci Anima started in 2002. It was created by Françoise, who worked with another very famous architect before that called Jean Nouvel. Maybe you've heard of him. And they have managed to build a lot of different type of architecture all over the world. So I think it's not a stretch of the mind to say that they are really worldwide famous in the architecture business. They've built towers in Japan, in New York, and they have so many projects that are going to happen and that they might tell us about. So thank you very much for being here tonight. I'm so used to, do Q&As at the evening. Thank you very much for being here with us. And the floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup. On est très content d'être là et on va, j'espère, pouvoir visiter un peu cette ville magnifique. Donc très content d'être en contact avec vous, évidemment, parce qu'on travaille beaucoup, hein, donc on n'a pas beaucoup le temps de venir dans des congrès de cette nature, et voilà, donc on est très heureux d'être là. Alors l'agence, notre agence, c'est une agence qui a déjà construit quelques dizaines de cinémas. On en a étudié beaucoup plus. Mais c'est vrai que c'est comme dans tout dans notre métier, on étudie beaucoup plus qu'on ne construit, hein, donc il y a une perte terrible. Et voilà, donc on a quand même plus d'une dizaine de projets assez emblématiques de ce qui, pour moi, est quand même le plus important des cinémas, c'est de l'urbanité, de la mixité urbaine, qui est évidemment un vrai sujet, puisque nous, on ne fait pas des cinémas de périphérie, on construit des cinémas de centre-ville, hein, qui ont une histoire et qui sont pour ça d'une grande complexité. Donc ce que vous voyez là, c'est tout sauf des cinémas, et ça, je pense que c'est un peu notre spécificité, c'est que tous les grands projets qu'on a fait, là vous pouvez les voir, donc il y en a un certain nombre, il y a effectivement des condominiums, il y a des centres commerciaux, il y a même un projet d'hippodrome qu'on avait fait en Corée. Donc tous ces projets finalement qui sont un peu pharaoniques et complexes, finalement nous a aidé à faire des cinémas qui sont d'une extrême complexité.
Make the cinemas that are even more complex than some of these buildings. I don't think there's anything more complex than a cinema, because you need to know how to put each thing in its correct place to do a quality project. Create like it has to live together with other elements in the city. There's sound issues and other things, engineering questions. So they're projects that are quite complex. There's a diversity of programs. This diversity of projects has allowed us apply our experience to the world of cinema. And the steps we want to do. It's like the soul of the community. So that approach to projects is different. So that dynamism for me is important in our projects. To bear in mind nature around the project, people, humans are not superior beings with other beings that we live with. We need to live with nature and make sure that the buildings are alive. I'm not crazy, but for me, it's very important to approach our projects with humility. So only in that way, with a humble look at our environment, can we build in some symbiosis with nature. And I think that's what makes our projects different. That compared to others that see others just as, when they design cinemas, they just see it as a project. I'm going to pass the mic to my colleague who's going to speak in English, and he's going to talk about our main projects. About some of them we can't speak, but we'll be able to speak about these. Vamos a hablar rápidamente de unos proyectos que hemos hecho.
Projects that are ongoing that all have their own specific issues of urban integration, heritage and conservation, new practices and technology, budgetary constraints, ecology, all these things that many of you probably have come across. But most of the cinemas that we work on have all undergone multiple changes. They've already had different lives, different spatial and technical anomalies that we've had to deal with. So it's always a story that is always evolving. Cinemas require constant improvement to bring them up to standards in terms of accessibility, comfort, sound installation, and they have to incorporate all the high-tech new technologies that and all the new uses that we can invent for them. Cinemas tell a story of urban diversity because it's always a work of integrating, interweaving, compression, coexistence with neighboring uses, with all the houses, the cities, offices, etc. So it's always this constant dialogue with the city. Cinemas therefore embody what we call a shared history of architecture in the cinema. So if we're going to look at three particular cinemas called the Pagode, Personnage Live, and Pâté Fourvette, two of which are on our drawing boards at the moment, or under construction, and the Pâté Fourvette, which has been built about 10 years ago. But they all, yeah, no, yeah. But all these are city center projects, not new build. They're all dealing with these the urban fabric, the memory of the inhabitants and the residents who designed and have worked, and it's part of their community. So rather than classifying them in terms of age, the buildings themselves have been constructed a lot in the 1890s when we start off looking one particular project, the Pagode, which was built in the 1890s, which is a very, very iconic building in Paris. It's legendary, let's say, because it's something that is very much a historic monument in the city, and has had an awful lot of different cinema directors and history in terms of cinematography that have gone through this area there, gone through this building, such as the film noir in popular French cinema. So originally, the building was in fact built as a ballroom for the wife of the director of one of the nearby shops, Bon Marché, which had just been built at that time. And this was in 1896. It was a gift to his wife. I don't think it really served him because his wife left him afterwards, so I don't know whether it was really the best thing to do. But it was built in the style of a Japanese style by an architect called Alexandre Marcel, who designed it in the Japanese style with a garden, Japanese style garden, like a shrine for Japanese shrine. This is what it looked like in 1896. It was turned into a cinema about 40 years later, in the 30s, and has undergone different changes. And in 1973, the original building had a cinema put underneath it, built underneath in a basement, and this is where we start off with our particular renovation work, which is, and this is the view in the 1970s that you see here. So the rebirth of the pagode, includes the creation of 2 additional auditoriums and a seating capacity of 400 people. Originally, there was 400 people in there, but with the new norms, with the new access for disabled people, cinema, technology, and so on, we've kept the same number of seats, but within 4 cinemas instead of just 2. So inside, as you can see, that this is the historic theatre, which has been totally renovated, and is in the process, we're in the process of finishing off now. Very minutious, very small work in terms of all the embroidery, all the painting on the ceilings, and gold leaf put back on all the lighting and so on. A very, very long work process that has taken many years, in fact, to complete. And what we do inside here, in order to create a new seating system, is to provide a kind of a boat that sits in the center, like a hull of a boat, with the seating. So we have the optimized viewing lines, and it's designed in a very contemporary manner. So the hull of the building is the hull of the seating rake is actually in a flax composite material rather than fiberglass, so it's a lot more ecological, and we slightly set away from the existing walls in order to make this difference between this historical element and the new part. Now, as you can see, we've dug down a long way, about 12-15 meters down for the technical areas right at the bottom, which meant that we had to support the original building in a very difficult manner, so there was no movement to this timber and wooden structure, timber and brick structure, sorry. So we had what we call a technique of top and down. So we built, as we gradually excavated, we built the walls around, and the basement walls, in order to keep the building as it was, sturdy and steady, so there were no cracks or failures within the building. And it allowed us to dig down into this huge cavern underneath in order to provide maximum viewing sites and enormous high ceilings, so you don't feel as though you're underground. You don't feel as though you're in a basement. You feel as though you're in a hall rather than anything else. And this was a very very important part of it. So here again you can see the hull of the seating inside. So we have to be very careful about the viewing lines and providing the optimum seating comfort for everybody. Part of the design is also to redo the garden, which is in the Japanese style. And you can see in the background there is the new pavilion, glazed pavilion, which provides a bar and the reception and ticketing and so on. So you'll be able to, when you arrive in this particular pavilion, you'll be able to go out with a glass of wine before you go and see the film, or go downstairs into the other parts of the cinema. So it really is a building which is meant to be set within the garden, like a pavilion, So we're slightly set away from the existing building. We touch it lightly, or as lightly as possible, in order to reveal the facade as much as possible, so that when you arrive at the building, you see the whole of the historic facade, which is really the jewel of this particular project, of this particular cinema. And we know that there's an awful lot of people who are waiting to come and see this. So the following project, the following project we call Personnage. It's for the foundation Personnage.
Yeah. What's
That was,
personnage in English? I don't know. This insect.
Yeah, it's founded by Lino Ventura, a very well-known French film star. And it is designed as an inclusive cinema. That is to say that it's a cinema that will have at least 70% of the staff who are disabled, mentally disabled for the most part. It's inspired by a cinema, the Prospector Cinema in New York, upstate New York, which was developed by a lady who had a disabled son and then had this idea about making a cinema all around disabled people. So this will be the first cinema of its type in Paris. The building was a theatre before, and is very much part of the fabric of Boulogne, Boulogne-Billancourt, just outside of Paris. This is what it looked like before. And the idea is, in fact, that the whole goal is to transform this theatre into at least a four-screen cinema, with various parts of different smaller meeting rooms. There'll be a concept store, restaurants, but it's really, the whole process is to open up the building as much as possible and provide an enormous amount of integration for the people in the community, where you can see that we have a very large urban space in front of the building, and that the transformation works with Personnage, providing a hybrid, inclusive cultural space. So it's the full mission of this is to provide a symbiotic extension, where we have all around the building, we have 3 major extensions which provide bioclimatic extensions, bioclimatic spaces for the building, and provides a different way of seeing this building, as you can see here. So beyond providing employment for disabled people, the foundation has this vocation of creating a cultural centre which will work with the community and provide new meeting spaces, as well as restaurants and bookshops and so on. As you can see here, this is the front of the building, where we have a large extension which will provide with terraces in front. On the top floor, on the first floor, you can see a restaurant area on the balcony up the top, and down below is the entrance area. And this is directly connected with the exterior urban space in front. These are the different extensions, which are these bioclimatic spaces that have solar shading and also have a lot of planting and greenery, which is all part and parcel, providing different extensions, different spaces, different meanings to the building that weren't before, and allows us to have environmental labels of excellent category, as well as, because we're providing disabled access at an extended level, integration of we also will have a AAA level accessibility accreditation, which will be one of the first things one of the first buildings in Paris to have this sort of thing.
More than Paris, eh?
Yeah.
France.
In France, yes. In France, yes. Yeah. So just the original space where the theatre was, where the salle 1, 2, and 3 was. So this is the way that we can reorganize the building in providing different areas, different screens within large spaces, as well as totally transforming the building itself. And what is also notable here is the access from the space in front, where you're completely on the same level as the restaurant, as the cafe, as the main screen cinema. So everybody can just walk in very, very easily, and it's a very, very fluid way of walking into the building. It's which is one of the major conceptions for this project. And as you can see here, as well as keeping something very flat, we also want to try and open up as far as possible in order to create more light and air coming into the building. A building built in the 1890s, which had a lot more massivity to it. So we're trying to open this up as much as possible, and providing these restaurant and terrace spaces in front of the building. So there's a natural fluid movement between the interior and exterior, where you'll be able to collect your tickets, go and have a drink, buy a book. This is the concept store, or have a drink or a meal in one of the other spaces. So we're always trying to create different types of spaces, different environments, different comforts, so that the space really lives in a totally different manner than what it did before. And this is the upper floor, where there'll be a restaurant on the first floor, with terrace coming out on that side there. So again, the whole area is very much a fluidity between light and air, and bringing people into these different spaces before they go into the cinema. This is also one of the smaller cafe areas. So it's almost a dreamlike space, let's say. So the third cinema, called the FAAAR, which is in the 13th district in Paris. Built originally in the 1890s, once again, and also for a theatre or a dance theatre that suffered different renovations and different organizations through its general history. This is also a building that has two facades to it. That is in fact, the middle of a city block. So it becomes a very difficult, constrained area, difficult, constrained site, to develop. The idea was, because the building, because the theatre itself had a very much of a tight-knit relationship with the community around. Once again, it's one of these theatres which is part of a district. They wanted to try and keep that and work on that. So in fact, the intention was to show re-digitalized films of older films, not just the blockbusters. So it really was a cinema designed in order to create a link with the past, and bringing people from the community into that area. Just opposite is actually the C'est du Pâté Fondation by Renzo Piano, so we're in company here. So this is the site. Again, very, very difficult. From the main boulevard, along entrance area. The main theatre spaces are in the back and stretch onto the side route. The building site was very difficult to actually do. We had to shore up all the buildings around, very constrained, very difficult to get the deliveries or the excavation out. So we made a huge hole, and then we started to rebuild it in again. And the way that we did it was a very much of a complex Rubik's cube of theatres that sit inside. But one of the major things that we wanted to do here was to build it around a patio in the centre of the building. So each of the facades have been designed as a screen. We worked with an artist called Miguel Chevalier, a digital artist, in order to make an animation of the screens, of the facades. Normally in Paris, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to have animated things on the facades, except if it's an artist's work of art. So we managed to get around it that way. Otherwise, you'd have to put the things behind anyway. Very complicated. So even the ancient monuments in France agreed to this. So it's very difficult negotiations with them, obviously. But you do get this idea of walking through the screen, walking into another dimension, into the cinema. So when you arrive in, you're in this fully glazed atrium, which is the main reception space where you'll buy your tickets, be able to have a drink. And we wanted to provide as much light and air again into the building, which isn't generally the case in modern cinemas where it's a black box. For us, it's very important to bring in light and also the vegetation, so which is why we have a garden in here. It's built like a bird's nest, as you can see from the way that the timber has been designed. And it provides us the opportunity to have different spaces, different ways of looking at the building. These are the balconies and circulation spaces that arrive into the different cinemas at different levels. So the cinemas are actually on 3 levels. It's not just all in one space. And in the center, there's a garden which is very important for this, providing the light and air and the nice sensitive touch to the central space. Very much of a geometrical work in terms of the facades, the way it's working with the timber inside as well. But the whole idea is that the spaces around the garden allow you to walk around and interact with that, but also they're the spaces where people can meet, have a drink, access the theatres in a lot more convivial manner. So there is a bar, obviously, where you can buy things. And one of the things that Jérôme Sédou wanted also was that you could take your glass of wine into the theatre as well. So there was also a different way of allowing having food and drink going into the different theatres, which is carried on in different Pathé theatres now as well. So seating areas where you'll be able to be around, and these are also event spaces. So they also rent this out, and it's very successful in that manner to have different events and so on for private functions and so on. They're all linked with the facades, and these facades, the digital facades are based on the pixel idea of a pixel, 30 by 30 LED squares, which make up the facades, which will change obviously, and we've carried that through into the building, into the detail of into the timber as well. So the whole idea is that there are extrusions of the facade that come into the building as well. And but it's been a work with the artists, with the community, in order to provide a dynamic theatre which has all the natural attributes, all the technological attributes of the contemporary theatre, as well as providing a link within the community itself. So it's a very successful thing, and we have a lot of people who say, "Oh, this is our favourite theatre we go to." So we're very, very, very pleased about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I would like to thank Europa Cinema to be here first, but also because the main part of this research comes from my participating to the Europa Cinema Conference and workshops. So, at the beginning of 2025, the Italian government launched a debate on eliminating the use restriction of cinema. So, authors, directors, producers asked to participate in the discussion to defend the cultural and social value of movie theaters. Also, Renzo Piano welcomed this appeal, recalling that cinema creates community and the movie theaters are a place for the people, fundamental elements of urban fabric. So, over the past 20 years, movie theaters have experienced a profound crisis driven by various factors: the rise of streaming platforms, the COVID pandemic, changing audience habits, rising management costs, first of all, energy. Movie theaters, once the heart of film enjoyment, are now struggling to sustain themselves and find a new role in contemporary cinema. So, to address this crisis, it's necessary to historicize movie theaters, recognize them as cultural assets. The means acting are regulatory, so protecting movie theaters from modification or demolition, as is done for other historical buildings, so like church, for example. Practical, because allowing functional and safety upgrades without altering the architecture value of them. And cultural, recognizing movie theaters as place of collective memory, witness the cultural and social life of the city. So the object of the study was a redevelopment project must analyze the role of movie theaters in the urban fabric, models of sustainable reuse, the causes of the crisis, the impact of technological innovation, changing the audience habits. The goal is to restore the movie theaters to their role as gathering spaces, developing strategies that combine environmental, economic, and social sustainability. So disused theaters can be revitalized through hybrid and multifunctional uses. For example, cinema and co-working, art exhibitions and live performance, gastronomic and cultural events, active participation of the local communities. Technological innovation is now a decisive factor for the public engagement and participation. So we need replicable format. For the sustainable reuse, it is possible to envision a replicable intervention format divided in these phases. The analysis of the urban context and the local needs, the neighborhood mapping and community involvement, structural and architectural assessment of the building, the definition of new function and spatial design, the adoption of sustainable technologies, and new management models, for example, crowdfunding, sponsorship, and private events. So the sustainable restoration, and then we have to monitoring very continuous to sustain these choices. So we are so towards a new concept of these movie theaters, alongside the redevelopment of abandoned theaters. It's time to image a new generation of cinema, like I said before. So this space, designed from the scratch, innovative, sustainable, integrated to urban life. Architecture can guide this process, restoring cinema to its original function and creating community through the shared experience of the cinema. Thanks.
I wanted to ask you, is there an example for this unused cinemas, or do you know an example which was rebuilt or for now?
So we studied a lot of cases also from the experience of Europa Cinema, but one of these is what I know in Rome, and is the Cinema Troisi, because they built first a community along the experience, and then they take an ancient cinema and they will make, I think, what we need new. But also my question to the architects was to imagine a kind of new spaces, because we need to have economic, how do you say, sustainability, also to share our activities to show film. This is the first, of course, but with something to earn. And so it could be other activities inside of the space. So the space should be also multifunctional.
Then we welcome Uma, and she will tell us structure to share, from structure to share story.
Yes.
So I think that we need some explanation for
yes.
that.
So I'm basically here to tell a bit more about the cinema that we are building. So first I will give you some background, and then I also have some visuals, so you can visualize everything that I say. The architectural side is a bit new for me because I took over the project, part of the project in September, and my job is more like the look and feel of the cinema, and my colleague Gerardo does the financial aspect of the cinema, which I'm very happy about. So yes, I work for MOOOV, and with MOOOV we have a yearly film festival, but we also have our Zebra Cinema, which is a network, our film distribution and film education, and in the future our own art house cinema, FAAAR, and our cafe, RAF. So MOOOV is becoming more and more like an umbrella term, actually. So MOOOV has traditionally worked nomadically, which means that we organize film screenings at different locations with a variety of partnerships. So starting in 2027, we will have our own physical location with like 3 cinema screens, and also a cafe, hospitality area. The new cinema will be called FAAAR, which means bright light in the dialect where I come from. So it refers to the cinema aspect and the illumination part, but also to the social teams and the engagement MOOOV wants to keep shining a spotlight on, both structurally and permanently. FAAAR will be housed in the Bond, and the Bond isn't like an existing building. It's like a long vacant and historical significant building in the city center of Turnhout, but it has stood empty for like over a decade, I think. You have two sections. You have the front sections, which is not owned by MOOOV, but by VVH. We will house our offices there with 4 other social-cultural organizations. So we will have to pay rent for our office. So it's like more like co-housing, but like in a work environment. And this part remains and will be completely renovated and modernized. And then you have like the rear section, which is owned by MOOOV, and that's where the cinema and the cafe will be. We will demolish everything on the rear section and rebuild everything. The initial plan was to renovate that part as well, but because that part is very worn with a lot of stability issues and a program difficult to fit in the existing footprint, we decided to rebuild everything. Maybe I can show you a picture. So here, I don't know if you see it. Oh no, to go back. So here you have the front section on the left photo. So that is the Bond, that's the street side. So if you look there, the front section is the Bond and that part remains. And then you have the rear section, that's where the cinema and the cafe will be. So here the cinema will be and there the cafe. So the structure of the building remains. Today, the Bond functions more like an island in the city with like closed facades actually. So you only communicate with like the street side. So only like on the left photo. With the cinema, our plan is to work with like a lot of glass and also a canopy so that it's like more warm and more inviting to the people and its surroundings. So we can give it like a friendly face on all sides. The cinema will also be a modern, contemporary neighborhood cinema adapted to today's standards for going out and film presentation. Maybe. So here you have some sides of the cinema. So there is the street. Here you have the building that's owned by VVH that remains, and here you have like the entrance of the cinema that we're going to rebuild, the back and the cafe part. And here you see the glass, and here as well, and here is like the canopy that connects everything. We will have 3 screening rooms with a capacity of 156, 49 and 62 seats. The film cafe and a lunch bar will have 80 seats inside and around 20 seats on the terrace, so like 100-ish in total. The cinema will be open daily, and the hospitality area opens around lunchtime and closes when the last film ends. We also have like a workshop space in the front section. So this section, so for young people or for children, we can offer there some workshops. We also have like, because now you can't communicate with like the rear section of the building, so our aim is to make that space also a bit greener and more inviting. So we will have like a waddy, which is like a water retention and play area. behind the building that will be designed to be fully accessible for children as well. So the usage of the front part, we call it the bondgenoten, which means the allies actually. So MOOV will house its offices there with 4 other social cultural organizations, and together we form the Bondgenoten, which is like an urban and regional meeting place where we share infrastructure such as offices, flex workplaces, and multifunctional rooms. So this part functions as a regional and a city lab, an incubator for local and regional communities, and a place for social and cultural entrepreneurships. So it actually aims to facilitate dynamic initiatives and also co-creation. I also have like some architectural designs. So this is like the part where we want to connect every part of it. So it's not like an island like it is now, but it's like more an inviting place on like every side of the building. So here I wanted to show you the Wadi side. So here is like the green area a bit, and then of course you have like trees around it. On the left side, you have like the basement side, which is not very interesting, but it's just here, the front section where we have our workshop space. Then you have like the ground floor. So this is the cinema, the public part, and this is the co-working space. Here you can see the foyer, the toilets. Here is like a hall where you can go to the biggest cinema hall, and also the cafe part with here like the bar and the terrace. And here you can see you also have like a lot of doors to enter and here as well. Voila, and here you have like the chairs where you can go to the first floor where we have 2 other cinema halls, and then this is like the roof, like the it's not that special for us, but I also wanted to show you the green, our green roof, because we also work with solar panels. Let me check. With solar panels, heat pump, rainwater collection via green roof, buffers, and green energy. And there is also like a geothermal potential in Turnhout and a heating network, but that's of course like a long-term goal because the city needs to work on that as well. And I think that was it. Yes, that was it.